Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest video for my Outside the Box series. Well, I actually teased this the other day mentioning that I was going to start this series all over again. I had it going on a couple of years back, but I just let it drop on the side because I started to work on other series here. But I decided to bring it back mainly because it's interesting. I wanted to do a little bit of variety, and I thought you might find this stuff interesting too, but also because some of the series that I'm working on already, like the Mafia and Gangsters, Mystery Disappearances, Gruesome and Grotesque, some of those I've just had to lay to the side too because of the unfortunate YouTube restrictions on ads. So I thought I would bring this one back to try to get some more interested parties to showcase some more interesting videos. And the concept is this: I'm just going to basically talk about stuff that interests me that doesn't necessarily fall into any other items like the aliens, UFOs, ghosts and spirits, cryptids and monsters, and so forth. And that's why I call it outside the box, because it's essentially outside of the realm of what I usually talk about. But in this case, I wanted to focus on this. First, I'm going to make a couple of videos on obscure movie characters that have stood the test of time. These are movie characters that in some cases they're cameos, other times they have a more prominent role, but I love the idea that we could, let's say, take a look, analyze these characters, see what they've been doing within the film, even try to guess like what happened outside of the film, mainly because I love that world. I love being able to like take a movie universe and being able to live in it, and then more importantly live outside of it, like let's say outside of the 2 hours that the movie has. So this way I'm going to present my ideas on these characters, why they did what they did, how they did it, who they were, what happened after the movie, that kind of stuff. So maybe this interests you, and then maybe this is something that I'll continue if it gets a number of views. But the first subject I'll talk about is this. You're looking at him now. I've clearly one of the most famous cameos in movies, especially when it comes to good quality drama movies, the ones that have great acting within them. You've seen it. I've seen it by now. There's a good chance others that you know have seen it. Glengarry Glen Ross, one of those movies where throughout time, throughout years, it's just essentially built its own audience. And I'm going to talk about this character. He wasn't really named in the film, but at least in the script and the screenplay, he goes by the name of Blake, and the impact he's had ever since then on this film. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this outside the box video, in this case, on the character Blake from Glengarry Glen Ross. So who was this character Blake? Well, he was someone, of course, that made a very famous cameo full of just some of the richest quotes in movie history there near the beginning of Glengarry Glen Ross. He was, of course, played by Alec Baldwin, and ever since that turn, it's just been a movie, a character that's been mimicked, parodied, basically just given a huge fan base to ever since its debut. If you haven't seen Glengarry Glen Ross, I highly recommend it. It's a great film, almost like a witnessing like a zoo of animals type thing, where you're peering in through the walls and seeing, in this case, how the world of these aggressive salesmen, especially in the world of, I guess you'd call it real estate, although it's debated if they even are, in this case, real estate agents. But still, it's seeing into their world and seeing how they interact, especially when they're presented with a very cutthroat, in this case, goal. And once that pressure was put upon them, you'll see the results of each one's actions. Some of them are more benevolent, others are more aggressive. Others are downright deceitful. Others are taking advantage of others. It's a very fascinating movie. I love it. I've seen it so many times now. To this day, I can quote pretty much anything associated with it. But this guy Blake, started it. He started it all with his cameo. So who was he? He was someone that was brought on board in the film, his character in other words, by the owners of that real estate company. I think it was called Premier Properties. And then he was brought on board because the sales weren't necessarily going where the owners thought they should. So he was brought to that place to kind of, and I'm using loose quotes, motivate them. So we can motivate the salespeople, get them going back to the sales that the owners want. He was someone, though, that boasted almost religiously about his own successful sales. He was someone that stated that he was making enough money in there to be, I think it was something like $900,000 or so in 1 year, while these other salesmen there in the group just basically made a fraction of it. And he claimed to do it all through his own initiative. Like there was this famous quote where the leads that they're given, in this case, the leads being the numbers of clients, the names of clients to call, to cold call, to try to get sales off of. They're complaining that those leads are weak. He's stating, though, that he can take those very same leads and be able to turn them into very successful sales. I think I remember him mentioning at one point that he could make $15,000 in just a few hours, and asking them if they can do the same. It's a great speech in some ways whenever you see the speech in the movie. Like he's someone where when he does this bravado, when he does his machismo, it's almost like a form of boasting his virility. Like he's stating to them, here's how manly of a man I am when it comes to sales. It's kind of in a way inspiring because you can see someone and the success that they have, but at the same time it's very belittling. Like he takes every single opportunity to turn around after a very inspiring quote and then turning around and poking at them and telling them this is why you'll never do that. So it's a great cross reference of quotes. It's that's why it remains one of the best cameos in films, because even to this day his entrance is just like a full force of nature, and once he leaves, the rest of the movie pretty much deals with his ramifications. But that's who he was. He was essentially someone that worked there for the company, Premier Properties, but he was probably their most successful salesman, and he was brought on board to motivate them. So what did he do? Like, how did he do this? Well, he basically gave them a goal. I don't know if he created the goal or if the owners created a goal. More likely it was a mixture of the two, considering how cutthroat he is in turn. But he told them this: because of their low sales, if they did not bring up those sales, then first place is A-OK. Like they're the ones that basically get the prize, which was a brand new Cadillac. Second prize, famously as he states, is a set of steak knives. Anyone else is completely gone, fired, kaput. And it's not like 2 week notice. No, in this case they're just let go, and then that way they'll be replaced by someone else. So he introduced that goal to them, so that way it's telling them no, that this is the last line. So how much of this again was his initiative, how much of this was the owners, it's up to us as viewers to decide. I tend to believe it's more on the lines of the owners. He's just the messenger, but I think that there might have been something in him where he probably told the owners to cut all the dead wood. Doesn't matter in this case if those people have families, if they have bills they have to pay, responsibilities. It doesn't matter to him. Dead wood is dead wood. They had their chance, and if they can't make it, such is the world that they're in. But that's essentially what he did. He introduced that absolutely brutal sales goal, and gave them essentially, and the movie made it seem like it was all just one night, but more likely it was towards the end of the month, since in the sales world, it's basically like everything just starts over every single month. So he gave them that timeline to do so. When did he do this? Well, the movie starts off basically at night, very late at night it seems, which is the world that they live in. In that case, they have to work late into the night because many of their clients or prospective clients, leads, are not available till after they in turn get off work. So they have to go to these places late at night and then try to sell to the people. So that's why he was there very late at night to do this, and that just basically woke them up. And then where did he do this particular infamous cameo? Right there at the offices. I love the setting, by the way, of the movie, how most of it takes place in that Premier Properties actual office. It's one of those things where you don't notice it beforehand, But afterward, you realize, oh my goodness, most of the movie is right there. It's right there in the office. This could have been a play, and in turn, it was. The whole movie originated from a Broadway play, and this was one that caught on, kind of like a little bit of a success, and then afterward, it was made into this movie. But you can see the origins there. So he was there, and I was delving into that world and wondering, like, when he showed up, it might have been actually probably about 30 minutes or so before the timeline of the meeting, the infamous meeting that he had, the coffee is for closers meeting, because you can see the remnants of his meeting. Like, you'll see the board, he must have written it there himself. You'll see his briefcase with the leads, the stuff that he brings out. He had all of that carefully done before they made their rounds to that coffee is for closers meeting. And so where he did this, he had it right then and there, in the Premier Properties office, right in the heart of everything, and then right front and center in front of that infamous board, so that way he can showcase to them the brutality of this new goal, the reality of it, letting them know that this is it, this is their final chance. And then why did he do this? Again, it all has to do with sales. I'll give a little peek on my world when it comes to this stuff too. I'm actually involved in some ways, in a lot of ways actually, in the world of sales. I love it myself. It's a world that you can make really good income, especially if you're good when it comes to talking to people, when it comes to prospecting, when it comes to follow-ups. And my key, of course, being servicing. Servicing is always king. Servicing will do so much for you. Does it take time? Yes. Does it take work? Absolutely, yes. But it does reward itself afterward. And so in my world of sales, I can totally relate to this world here, because here you have something where you have goals, where you have commission, where you have initiative to try to get more sales, not just for yourself, but to also reward your clients and to reward the company and so forth. So why he did all this was, again, because it seems like, at least based on the board before he flipped it around to show the ABC stuff, here you had a world where only one salesman was pretty much kicking butt. Like in this case, that was, of course, Ricky Roma, who was played by Al Pacino, by far one of the most quotable characters as well within the entire movie. But everyone else was pretty much dead to nothing, like when it comes to their sales. I think the other guy, Moss, who was played by Ed Harris, the hothead, he was the one that was second, if I'm not mistaken, but it was just a fraction of what Ricky Roma had. And then everyone else, Aronoff, who was the more timid one, he had like a tenth of that, just even then. And then, of course, Shelley the Machine Levine, the older guy, he was the one that was more featured prominently, played by Jack Lemmon, brilliantly played by him. He had zero, absolutely zero in sales. It's tough in the world of sales. Some months, like for example, in my world, whenever you're not doing too well, you have to remember though that everything resets. But in that case, with their world, I mean, it's more cutthroat than that. So why he did this was because only one single salesman was meeting their goal. Interestingly though, it seems like, and if again this is all based on just the context of this 2 hours, but it seems like Ricky Roma was making a lot of his sales illegally or unethically, I should better say. So maybe he was kicking butt, maybe he was number one, but he was totally doing it in a way that made sure that it only benefited him and not anyone else. Did the company care? It seemed like their Premier Properties didn't seem like it. Certainly this guy Blake didn't care, because whenever there was that mention that Ricky Roma's character wasn't there for the meeting, Blake didn't really seem to care. The character, again, by Alec Baldwin, instead, he just went forward with it. He just said, well, I'm going to start the meeting anyways. Maybe because, again, when he saw the board and he saw Ricky Roma's numbers, he realized however he's doing it, he's doing something that's working, so we'll just leave him as is. But again, why this was done was because 3 out of the 4 salesmen were just completely missing the mark when it came to their sales, and so this was why they introduced this cutthroat notion. Is it good? Is it bad? Obviously it seems bad up front, because here you have something where you have grown men, families, responsibilities, all of a sudden being held almost at gunpoint to being able to create more sales. Conversely, though, if you look at this as another opportunity, maybe they're in the wrong business, maybe they're in the wrong world, especially like the more timid guy, Aeronaut. It seems like if they were instead someplace else, being more happier, this could have been the opportunity to send them to that way. Like maybe some of them should work for the government, maybe others should work for more other private companies, whatever is the case. So this is a good, quick kick in the butt to be able to get to that point. But still, it's a brutal method of doing so, and making sure that in this case only the top survive. And then how does this impact the group? Clearly, this set the goal. Blake's character, once that meeting was finished, and he just promptly walked out in his 80-something thousand dollar car, if I'm not mistaken. There's that prominent scene where you hear that beep from the car, that alarm that sounds that's telling you this is an expensive car. Once he left, everyone else started talking about the experience. Some clearly mad like Moss, others more scared like Arenal, and then the other guy, Shelley the Machine Levine, more along the lines of, "It's just another day. Let me just try to get through this." Ricky Roma didn't care in this case because he was just still continuing to do his sales, and then he went on from there. But still, this impacted them in a way where they saw that they had to get some good numbers, and if they didn't, then they would absolutely be cut. Now, here's my favorite part when it comes to talking about these characters. What happened to him? What happened to Blake? This is where, again, you go into the context of stepping outside of the realm of those 2 hours of the film and wondering like what occurred to him. I think in my experience, just based on my own experience, and then thinking, more of outward, I think that in this case what happened to him, he just continued as is, being the most successful salesman there. Could he have done, as he boasted, $15,000 in sales using the same weak leads that the rest of the people there, the rest of the salesmen kept stating? I think yes, only if, like, let's say he was in an ideal situation. Like, some people can just truly sell things. Like, they have that magic within them that'll convince anybody that yes, this is correct. One of the most notable examples is Steve Jobs, like taking ideas and concepts that are revolutionary, but introducing them in a way where it's almost like shut up and take my money. It's that kind of stuff. So in this case, I think he really could have, not everything, like not all of them, not all of the leads, but still, I think the majority of them could have happened, because at the end of the day, even with sales, the best salesman, it comes down to luck and good timing. So what happened to him, I think he just continued to make his 970 something thousand dollars that he was mentioning on a yearly basis, and he was doing it, of course, by selling to more richer people, more richer clients. That's what another thing that I think the movie should have explained more, and that's why I think he made such a large number of sales. The leads that they were giving, the salesmen, those are more on the lines of, let's say, of middle class leads. But in this case, Blake, being the super salesman that he is, he was probably giving the more prominent ones, upper class clientele, the ones that maybe even have higher figures, like in terms of 7 figures plus when it comes to their income. And then that's how he's able to sell them. Is it right? Is it wrong? Well, think of it this way. The movie highlighted it too. If you have successful sales, you'll continue to be given, in this case, the more prominent leads, the more important ones. If you don't have them, then why would the company give you more of these quality leads? And the Shelley the Machine Levine, quotes the irony, because once you get to a lower point, how do you get above it afterward? Well, in this case, I think that's what happened to Blake. He just continued right after that speech to be able to sell and then continue to be the top salesman within the organization. If he wasn't the top salesman, I'd be surprised if there were others that were above him there in premier properties. But who knows? Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But he definitely had the charisma, the swagger, the charm, the authority as well. There are some cases too, and this is true in the world of sales. Sometimes customers like to be led, like they like to be shown that this is why it makes sense, and almost forcing someone to see that point, like letting them know, stop procrastinating. This is it. This is the reason why you're asking me for advice. And so in that case, this guy Blake, I think he just continued to be top of the class when it came to his sales world. I don't know. I don't have enough of context though to guess. Did he do things unethically, like in this case, like Ricky Roma did, or did he do things like more along the lines of of Shelley and the Machine living like old fashioned, but then adapting to things unlike Shelley. Who knows? But it seems like based on his own diatribe, like everything he was mentioning, especially the rude way that he was doing so throughout the entire meeting, I would have to guess that he would be more on the lines of cutting corners if he did so. And if so, that kind of stuff would eventually catch up to him because rich people, unlike, let's say, the clientele that they were dealing with, the salesmen, rich people can fight back. Like they can say, I was screwed over on this deal. I'm going to hire a lawyer and then that's it. I'm going to sue you. And so in that case, I think he would have to be more careful along his end. But it's a different world when it came to the world of Blake's level because he would just have had more opportunity, more commission, more sales, less risk as well, and it just continues to benefit him thereafter. So, but that's pretty much it. What do you guys think? That's my entry in this case too, outside the box. In this case, working with Blake. One last thing to mention too: this role was just completely made up for the film. That's why people to this day correctly state that the script is actually more superior to than the Broadway script, the Broadway play, because most of the Broadway play omitted things that you see in the film. It's a weird world. Like usually it's the other way around. Like the scripts will take from their original source and cut things out. Here in this case, though, the script introduces new things that resolve certain things, that introduce certain things and make things more clear. So his role was created from scratch. It was a great way of showcasing the actual, like he's the catalyst. It's the one that showcases everything to drive thereafter in the film. So the fact that this was just created from pure scratch and in a way that just perfectly blended in within the film while still elevating the Broadway to play to a whole other level in the film itself is just amazing. And the impact shows because ever since then he's been parodied so many times. I think he even parodied himself. Alec Baldwin did in one of the Saturday Night Live episodes. But ever since then it's just been about that. It's about Blake. It's about his Coffees for Closers speech. It's about the salesman, everything that they did there. Very, very fascinating stuff. So, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Do you want to see more videos like this? I think it's something that would interest most of my viewers here. And other stuff that I will focus on is other characters, like one I'm going to throw out soon that I'll end up doing if it's popular enough. Nedry, in this case from the Jurassic Park film. Nedry, the guy played by Wayne Knight, Newman in other words, from Seinfeld. I loved his character within the film. It's one of those things where you want to see more of him. I guess that's the theme that these outside the box videos will have, is that it's characters that made an impact that you want to see more of, and in that case it would be Nedry. Obviously in his case it's a little different because he ended up being ripped to shreds, but still it's more where I would more explore the character of him, what he did, what impact did he have, why did he do it, that kind of stuff, and then little trivia mixed in. So if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, let me know and I'll be interested to see what your comments are here too. So all right everybody, thanks again as always, take care.